When I woke up in the hospital, the first thing I noticed was the silence. No crying, no worried whispers, no trembling hand clinging to mine. Just sterile walls, the beeping of machines, and a heavy emptiness gnawing at my chest. Fonda wasn't there. For a moment, I convinced myself there had been some mistake. That she was just late. That any second now she'd come running in, makeup smeared, eyes swollen, shouting my name like her life depended on it. But minutes dragged into hours. And when the doctor quietly slid into the room with his clipboard, offering me a practiced, professional smile, I understood. She had known I was here, and she had chosen not to stay. The nurse told me, almost apologetically, that a woman had visited once, just once, on the night of the accident. She left before the sun even rose, before anyone could ask her to sign a consent form, before anyone could explain if I was going to live or die. No messages, no flowers, no promises. In her mind, I had already become a memory, something disposable, something easily replaced. I lay there for a long time, staring at the cracks in the ceiling, feeling my body ache from the wounds that had nearly killed me. But there was a deeper ache, one no doctor could fix. It wasn't the car crash that destroyed me. It was realizing the person I loved most had treated me like roadkill. That night, as the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead and the world moved on without me, I made myself a quiet, binding promise. No matter what she said, no matter what tears she shed, no matter how much she begged or lied or pretended, I would never ever return to Fonda's side again. I was Roy Hale, 26 years old, an ordinary guy with an ordinary life. At least that's what I thought. Before the accident, I had everything I ever wanted. A steady job in a mid-sized company, a cozy apartment downtown, and a girlfriend who made the world seem a little less cold. Or so I believed. Fonda came into my life like a hurricane. One moment, I was clocking overtime shifts and saving every penny for the future. The next, I was chasing after a woman whose laughter could light up a room and whose temper could burn it to the ground. She was beautiful in a way that made people turn their heads twice. Sharp brown eyes, a teasing smile, and a way of making you feel like you were the only person who mattered. When Fonda wanted something, she didn't ask. She charmed, she pushed, she demanded. And me? I gave. I gave her my time, my dreams, my heart. If she said she was tired of her old apartment, I worked overtime to help her move into a better one. If she complained about her car breaking down, I drained my savings to get her something new. If she cried because her coworkers were mean, I spent my nights writing resumes and cover letters for her, trying to help her find a better job. To me, love was simple. You gave without expecting anything back. You stood by their side no matter what storms came. You fought for them even when they made it hard. But for Fonda, love was a different game altogether. Fonda loved to be adored. She loved grand gestures, dramatic fights, makeup gifts that sparkled under candlelight. She loved knowing that someone would chase her when she walked away. She loved the thrill of being wanted more than she loved the person wanting her. At first, I didn't see it. I thought her demands were signs of passion, that her jealousy was proof she cared, that her cold silences were tests I needed to pass. But love isn't a game you win by losing yourself, and the more I gave, the more Fonda took, until there was nothing left of me but a man lying in a hospital bed, wondering why the only person he had fought for had abandoned him without a second thought. I replayed our last conversation over and over, the rain pounding against the windshield, the sharp sting of her words. "You're suffocating me, Roy. I can't breathe around you anymore." Then the flash of headlights, the screech of tires, the world spinning out of control. And now here I was, alive, but hollow. The irony was almost cruel. I had been willing to die for her, but she wouldn't even show up to see if I lived. A nurse knocked gently on the door to check on me. I nodded absently, pretending to care. Outside the window, the city lights flickered like dying stars. Somewhere, out there, Fonda was probably laughing in a bar, sipping cocktails, spinning new promises for someone else. I wondered if she even remembered me. If I was just another chapter she had already closed. A small voice in my head whispered that maybe it was better this way. Maybe the accident hadn't destroyed my life. Maybe it had set me free. Because loving someone like Fonda wasn't love at all. It was a slow erosion, a quiet, patient suicide of everything you once were. I had spent years bending myself into shapes that would fit her moods, her needs, her fleeting dreams. And in the end, she had walked away without even saying goodbye. Somewhere deep inside, past the anger and the heartbreak, past the bitter taste in my mouth, something stronger was stirring. Resolve. Clarity. The Roy who had chased after Fonda in the rain, desperate and blind, was dead. The Roy who had woken up in this empty room, scarred and wiser, had no intention of chasing anyone ever again. My legs still ached when I stood. The IV needle tugged at my hand. I didn't care. I pulled it out, ignoring the sting, and reached for my clothes folded neatly on the side table. If no one was going to come for me, then I would walk out of here on my own. I dressed slowly, wincing as I pulled on my jacket. Each movement hurt, but it was a good kind of pain, real, tangible, proof that I could still move forward under my own power. As I left the hospital room, I didn't look back. There was nothing left behind me worth remembering. Fonda's shoe might have shattered my heart, but she had also set me free. And someday soon, when she realized what she had thrown away, it would already be too late. Because the boy who would have forgiven anything was gone. And the man who had taken his place was done begging for love that was never real to begin with. The apartment door creaked open with a hollow groan. Dust floated lazily through the air, settling on the untouched furniture, the forgotten memories. I stepped inside, my footsteps echoing on the hardwood floor. Nothing had changed, and yet everything had. Fonda's shoes still sat by the door. Her half-empty coffee mug still rested on the counter, lipstick stains fading into a ghost of the woman who once lived here, but she was gone, and I wasn't the same man who had loved her. I dropped my bag with a dull thud and wandered through the apartment, each step heavier than the last. The living room smelled faintly of her perfume, sweet, expensive, suffocating. I yanked open a window, letting the cold night air wash through the space, scattering the last traces of her. On the coffee table, my phone buzzed against the wood, an unknown number. For a moment, I considered ignoring it, but curiosity won. I swiped to answer. "Roy?" a soft voice whispered. I recognized it immediately. Edith, Fonda's best friend. Or at least, she used to be. I said nothing, waiting. She took a shaky breath and continued. I heard you were discharged today. Are you okay?" I stared out the window, watching the lights of the city blur into a smeared canvas of loneliness. "I'm alive," I said flatly. There was a pause. Then, almost too quietly to hear, she said, "Roy, I think you should know something." I waited, heart pounding even though I hated myself for still caring. "Fonda." Edith's voice broke, like she was struggling to get the words out. "She's not who you think she is." I laughed under my breath, a hollow sound that didn't reach my eyes. "I figured that out already." "No," Edith insisted. "You don't understand. She's with George." The name slammed into me like a blow. George, my so-called friend. The guy who used to slap me on the back, who used to say things like, "Bro, you're lucky to have her," when he thought I wasn't paying attention to the way he stared at her. I didn't say anything. "I couldn't," Edith continued, words spilling out in a rush. "Even before your accident, Roy, it wasn't an accident that night. They were fighting. About you. About whether Fonda should stay with you or leave." I sank onto the couch, the springs groaning beneath me. "They were together the whole time?" I asked, my voice like sandpaper. "No, not exactly," Edith said, voice trembling, "but close enough." Close enough. Close enough that my loyalty had become a joke. Close enough that my love had become a burden. The silence stretched between us. Finally, Edith whispered, "I'm sorry, Roy. I wanted to tell you earlier, but I didn't know how." I exhaled slowly, feeling something inside me crack and crumble. "I don't blame you," I said. "You didn't owe me anything." She was quiet for a moment, then asked carefully, "What are you going to do?" I looked around the apartment, the life I had built around. A lie. The future I had once imagined, now nothing but ashes. "I'm going to leave," I said simply. Edith let out a shaky breath, almost like a sob. "Good," she said softly. "You deserve better." The call ended. I sat there for a long time, staring at the phone still glowing in my hand. At some point, exhaustion pulled me under. When I woke hours later, the apartment was dark, and the air was heavy with a storm rolling in. I stumbled to the kitchen for water. That's when I saw it. An envelope on the kitchen counter, half buried under a pile of unopened mail. Curious, I pulled it out. It was addressed to me, but the handwriting was unmistakable. Fonda's. My fingers hesitated. Every instinct screamed to toss it into the trash unopened. But my curiosity, stupid and stubborn, won again. Inside was a letter, short and cruel in its simplicity. "Roy, I'm sorry for what happened. I hope you understand that sometimes people drift apart. I need freedom. I need space. I hope you'll find someone who can give you the kind of love you deserve. Take care. Fonda." No apologies, no explanations, no admissions. Just a neat little note to wrap up 3 years of love like a receipt after a cheap meal. The rage didn't come. The grief didn't either. All that remained was an icy, bitter clarity. I was done. Whatever pieces of myself I had left would not be wasted mourning someone who never once hesitated to abandon me. I dropped the letter into the trash and watched it disappear beneath the scraps of other forgotten things. Some people didn't deserve forgiveness, and Fonda Shu had made sure she was one of them. The night dragged on endlessly. I sat in the darkness of my apartment, the only light coming from the city outside, cold and distant. Every time I closed my eyes, fragments of memories came rushing back. Fonda's laughter echoing in my ears. Her hands brushing mine when she wanted something. Her fake tears whenever she needed forgiveness. It was pathetic. I gripped the edge of the couch, trying to steady myself, but the bitterness gnawed at me from the inside out. How had I been so blind? How had I believed that someone like her could love someone like me without strings attached? The truth was ugly. She never loved me. She loved what I could give her. The comfort, the stability, the attention. And when someone shinier came along, someone like George, she didn't even hesitate to throw me away. The worst part wasn't even the betrayal. It was the silence. The way she had left me bleeding and broken and hadn't even looked back. I leaned my head against the wall, feeling the cold seep into my skin. My chest tightened painfully. It wasn't just the accident that had shattered me. It was the realization that everything I thought we had was a lie. 3 years, wasted. 3 years given to someone who treated me like a backup plan. My hands shook as I tried to steady my breathing. I wasn't crying. The tears had dried up days ago. What was left now was worse. Emptiness. Like a hollowed-out shell barely pretending to be a man. I thought about calling someone. Edith, maybe. But what would I even say? That I was stupid? That I had loved someone who couldn't even pretend to care? No. There was nothing left to say. The rain started to fall, a slow, miserable tapping against the windows. I watched it. For a long time, the patterns blurring my reflection in the glass. Somewhere out there, Fonda was probably laughing with George, sharing drinks, making plans, living her life like I had never even existed. I wondered if she ever thought about me. If she ever remembered the nights we stayed up talking about the future, the vacations we never took, the promises she broke without a second thought. It was a useless thought. A weak, desperate thing I immediately crushed. Fonda Shu didn't think about anyone but herself. And I wasn't going to let her live rent-free in my mind any longer. Still, the ache lingered. Deep, gnawing, vicious. No matter how many times I told myself it didn't matter anymore, my heart refused to listen. I had loved her with everything I had, and she had traded me away like I was nothing more than an old coat she didn't want anymore. There was no justice in it, no lesson to be learned. Just pain. I stood up, pacing the room like a caged animal. My ribs still ached from the accident, but I welcomed the pain. It made everything feel real, tangible, something I could focus on, instead of the endless, roaring emptiness inside me. I thought about the times I had sat up waiting for her, worried sick while she was out partying with her friends. The times she brushed off my concerns with a careless laugh. The times she made me feel like the bad guy for caring too much. I should have seen it coming. All the signs were there. But love makes you stupid, blind, willing to forgive things you shouldn't. The doorbell rang, sharp and sudden. I froze. For a moment, my heart leapt in my chest. Some foolish part of me hoped it was Fonda, standing in the rain, looking sorry, ready to beg for forgiveness. But when I opened the door, it wasn't her. It was Edith. She stood there, soaked to the bone, hair plastered to her face, arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold herself together. She didn't say anything. She just looked at me, her eyes wide and broken. Without thinking, I stepped aside and let her in. She moved stiffly, like every step hurt. I closed the door behind her and watched as she stood in the middle of the living room, dripping water onto the floor. Finally, she spoke, her voice small and raw. "I couldn't stay quiet anymore," she said. "I couldn't let you go on thinking. It was your fault." I stared at her, silent, waiting, daring her to tell me something I didn't already know. She looked down, her fists clenching. "I tried to warn her. I told her not to play with you like this, but she didn't listen." The words hit harder than any slap could have. Confirmation. Cold, brutal confirmation. Fonda had known exactly what she was doing, and she had done it anyway. Edith's shoulders shook. "I told her you were different. I told her you were good, but she just laughed and said you'd get over it." I exhaled slowly, feeling a strange calm settle over me, like a storm finally blowing itself out. "I will get over it," I said, my voice steady. "I just won't be the same when I do." Edith looked up at me, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I know," she whispered. "And for what it's worth, I'm sorry, Roy, for all of it." The room felt unbearably heavy. I didn't know what to say to her, didn't know if I wanted to say anything at all. But as I looked at Edith, so different from Fonda, so raw, so honest, I felt the first stirrings of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope, small, battered, and almost too fragile to touch, but still alive. Maybe the worst part of my life was finally over. Maybe it was time to start fighting for myself, instead of fighting for people who never deserved it. The next morning, I thought about leaving the city. I packed a small duffel, bag with the essentials, and booked a cheap train ticket heading south. No real plan, no destination that mattered, just distance. I thought that was all I needed. Space to heal. But life, it seemed, wasn't done throwing punches. It started with a knock at the door, sharp, urgent. I almost didn't answer, but something told me not to ignore it. When I opened the door, it wasn't Edith, it was George. He stood there in casual clothes, hands shoved into his jacket pockets, looking as smug and comfortable as if he belonged there. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he grinned, the kind of grin you reserve for fools and dead men. "You look like hell, Roy," he said lightly. "Guess the hospital food didn't do you any favors." I didn't move, didn't invite him in. The sight of him standing there, acting like we were still friends, made something deep inside me snap. "What do you want?" I asked, voice low. George shrugged, pretending not to notice the tension thickening the air between us. "I thought I'd check on you. Heard you're getting all emotional about Fonda moving on." The words hit harder than any punch. I clenched my fists at my sides, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Is that what she told you? That I'm sitting around crying for her?" George gave a short laugh. "Come on, Roy. You knew she was too much. For you. She needed someone who could actually keep up." I stared at him, my blood pounding in my ears. "You mean someone like you?" He smirked. "Exactly. There it was. The truth stripped bare. No more pretending. No more lies. George had never been my friend. Not once. Not ever." "You think you won something," I said quietly. He tilted his head, mocking. "Didn't I?" I smiled then. A real smile, cold and hollow and sharp enough to cut glass. "No, George," I said. "You just inherited my problems." For a moment, confusion flickered across his face, but I didn't give him time to recover. I stepped closer, lowering my voice to a near whisper. "She's still lying to you. She's still playing games. You're not the man she loves. You're just the next fool she's using until someone better comes along." George's jaw tightened. "Good. Let the seed of doubt take root. Let it rot him from the inside the way their betrayal had rotted me." He tried to laugh it off, but it came out forced. "You're just bitter," he muttered. "You lost." "Maybe," I said, stepping back and reaching for the door. "But at least now I'm free." Before he could say another word, I slammed the door shut in his face. For a long moment, I stood there, breathing, hard, feeling the weight of everything settle over me like a heavy coat. George and Fonda deserved each other. Two liars tangled in their own web, choking on their own selfishness. I wasn't running anymore. I wasn't hiding. I was going to stand tall, even if standing hurt. This wasn't just about surviving now. It was about making sure they both realized what they had lost. About making sure they remembered me, not as the fool they abandoned, but as the man they could never destroy. And that was a promise I intended to keep. 3 days later, I showed up at a party I had no intention of enjoying. It was one of those city rooftop events, the kind that pretends to be casual but smells of money, of connections, of fake smiles and shallow laughs. I wasn't invited, of course, but I knew Fonda would be there, and George, and most importantly, so would the people who used to respect me, who used to see me through the lens she painted. I arrived late, wearing the same black suit I wore to funerals. That felt appropriate. The moment I walked in, heads turned, not because I was anyone important, but because I wasn't supposed to be there. Whispers started immediately. "There he is. Isn't that the guy who got dumped? Didn't he nearly die? Why does he look better than before?" Because I was. Better. Stronger. Colder. I made my way through the crowd like a ghost. Faces blurred. Conversations faded. And then I saw her, Fonda. She was laughing with a group of people, drink in hand, her red dress hugging her like she still had something worth showing off. And next to her was George, arm draped around her waist like he owned her. For a second, I just watched, not because I missed her, but because I wanted to remember this moment, the last time she'd ever be able to look down on me. She saw me before I said a word. Her smile faltered. She blinked, like she couldn't believe I was real. Then her eyes darted to George, then back to me. I walked toward them, steady, calm, not a flicker of emotion on my face. "Roy," she said slowly. "You came?" I nodded. Didn't want to miss the show. George stepped forward, trying to puff his chest. "You weren't invited." "I don't need an invitation," I said. "I just wanted to return something." Fonda tilted her head, suspicious. "Return what?" I reached into my pocket and pulled out the envelope. The one she left on my counter. Her letter. Closure. I handed it to her. She took it like it might explode. "What is this supposed to mean?" she asked. I didn't answer. I turned, letting my voice rise just enough to catch the attention of the nearby crowd. "You see, when someone disappears from your life, the least they can do is explain why." People around us went quiet. I continued, my voice even. "I got hit by a car after begging her not to walk away. I almost died, spent 2 weeks in the hospital. She didn't come. Not once." Gasps. Quiet murmurs. Fonda's smile cracked at the edges. "Roy, stop," she hissed. "This isn't the time, but it's the perfect time," I said. I turned toward George. "And you, my friend? You were already sleeping with her behind my back, weren't you?" George's jaw tightened. Fonda grabbed his arm, but he shook her off. "Roy," he said, his voice lower now, "don't make a scene." "Oh no," I replied, smiling. "You haven't seen a scene yet." I pulled out my phone and connected.
It to the event speaker system via the open Bluetooth connection. Someone must have left it unsecured. Rookie mistake. A voice played through the speakers. Fonda's voice. From a recording Edith had helped me get during one of their phone
calls. If he finds out, he'll never forgive me. But it's fine. Roy's too soft. He'll cry about it, then get over it. He always does. The room went completely silent. Another voice followed. George's. "Let him think we just got close after he left. The guy's a walking sympathy. Card anyway." The audio ended. Everyone stared at them. Fonda looked like she'd been slapped. George just stood there frozen, like he couldn't decide whether to deny it or run. I met her eyes. "You always said I was too boring, too predictable, but here's something unpredictable. I'm done pretending you meant anything to me." Her eyes were wide, frantic now. "Roy, please, you don't have to do this here. We can talk." "No," I said. "We're done talking." She reached for me, maybe out of habit, maybe out of panic. I stepped back, and then I turned to the crowd. "Let them keep their drama. I just wanted you all to know the truth. Not because I want sympathy, because I'm done being your fool." I walked away without looking back, but as I reached the exit, I saw someone waiting near the door. Edith. She had seen the whole thing. Her eyes were red, but not from shame, from pride. "You did it," she whispered. I nodded. It was time. She walked beside me into the cold night, silent for a while. Then she asked softly, "Are you okay?" I didn't lie. "Not yet." "But someday?" she asked. "Someday," I said. We stood together at the curb, just the two of us. The chaos, behind us fading into background noise. I looked at her and realized something strange. For the first time in months, I felt light. Not happy, not healed, but free. Fonda could keep her lies. George could drown in his guilt. Let them rot. I had survived the wreckage. And now, I was walking out of it, one step at a time. A week passed. Then another. The party became the talk of the city. Clips of Fonda's face frozen in shock, her voice echoing through the rooftop speakers. Those went viral in group chats I wasn't even part of. Some people called it cruel. Others called it justice. I didn't care either way, because I wasn't doing it for them. I had done it for me. But just when I thought it was over, just when I believed the worst was behind me, Fonda came back one last time. It was a Sunday. Morning. The sun was still rising, pale and soft. I was making coffee when the doorbell rang. I opened it expecting Edith, maybe a delivery, but it was her. Fonda. No makeup, no jewelry, hair tied up in a loose, messy knot. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, emotionally. Her voice cracked. "Roy." I didn't respond. She stood there for a moment, the silence pressing down between us. "Please, just hear me out." I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. You've got 60 seconds. Start talking. Tears gathered in her eyes, but they didn't move me. Not anymore. I messed up, she whispered. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. But I needed you to know. I regret it. Everything. George, the games, leaving you like that. I was scared. You loved me too much, and I didn't know how to handle that. You didn't regret it when you were laughing at my expense, I said flatly. You didn't regret it when I was unconscious, alone in a hospital bed, wondering if you'd ever show up. She winced. I was selfish, I know, I was stupid, but No, I cut in. You weren't stupid. You were calculated. You knew exactly what you were doing, and you thought I'd still take you back when the world turned its back on you. She didn't deny it. Didn't even try. Her voice dropped. I lost everything. After that night, my job, my sponsors, even my parents distanced themselves. I just wanted you to know, you were the only one who ever loved me for real. That finally made me laugh. Too bad you only figured that out when there was nothing left to take from me. She stood there shaking, lips trembling. I don't want anything, Roy, I swear. I just wanted to apologize, in person. You did, I said, and started closing the door. She stepped forward, blocking it. Wait, can we at least talk, just once? Not as lovers, just as people who shared something once? My grip tightened on the door. Then I stopped, let it go, stepped back. Not because I forgave her, but because I wanted her to see it. Everything she threw away, and everything I had become. I led her into the apartment. She looked around like she was entering a memory she wasn't ready for. It was different now. Cleaner. Simpler. No trace of her remained. She sat on the edge of the couch like she didn't belong. Because she didn't. I've been seeing a therapist, she said quietly. Trying to fix whatever's broken inside me. I didn't respond. She glanced at me. I know it's too late, but I still wanted to be honest. Then let me be honest too, I said, sitting across from her. You didn't just break my heart, Fonda. You humiliated me. You turned me into a joke. And the worst part? I was still willing to forgive you up until the moment I saw how little it meant to you. She bowed her head. You talk about healing. Therapy? That's good. You should work on yourself, but you don't get closure just because you want it. Not from me. She swallowed hard. Then what should I do? Live with it. She blinked, stunned. That's what real regret feels. Like I said, it's not something you apologize for and walk away clean. It's something that follows you, that lingers, that makes you a better person, if you let it. She opened her mouth, but I stood up. You should go now. Fonda rose slowly. She walked to the door, hesitated, then looked at me one last time. If things had been different... But they weren't, I said. That's the part you still don't get. And I closed the door behind her. I didn't cry, didn't shake, I just felt done. I didn't know if she'd really change, but it didn't matter. She would never be part of my life again. And as for George, he'd already been taken care of. A few days earlier, I sent an anonymous packet to his company. Enclosed were screenshots of his private texts with Fonda, mocking clients, violating NDA agreements, laughing about misusing company funds to pay for her shopping sprees. He was fired within 48 hours. His name? Ruined. He still didn't know. It was me, and he never would. Revenge didn't need to be loud. It just needed to be complete. As for Edith, she stayed. After the dust settled, she showed up at my apartment with takeout and a bottle of wine. No expectations, no apologies, just quiet companionship. We didn't talk much that night. But when she leaned her head on my shoulder, I didn't move away. Some scars don't fade, but some people help you live with them. It wasn't love yet, but it was peace. And for the first time in a long, long time, that was enough. I didn't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. Not to Fonda, Not to George, not even to myself. They had taken my love for granted. Now I had nothing left to give them, and everything left to build for myself. The chapter was closed, burned, ashes scattered, and I was already halfway through writing the next one.